afternoon to everybody. Parshat Chukat. Parshat Chukat takes us to 38 years, basically after the Inyanim of the Meraglim, the Inyanim of what we learned last week, the rebellion of Korach, and we now, like a whole generation basically later, on the brink of coming into Eretz Yisrael. And so the Torah describes us sort of the beginning of that transformation, and what the Torah describes is first of all, the first leader of the original trio, in other words, Miriam, Aaron, and Moshe Rabbeinu, who led Bnei Israel from Mitzrayim. So the first one of those to pass away was Miriam. The Kli Yakar, as well as others, raises a very interesting question, and that is that the Torah just is very curt in the way it describes the death of Miriam. It just says that Miriam passed away. We don't find that there was any eulogizing of Miriam. We don't find that the people cried about Miriam. Unlike, for example, Aaron, it says that the entire household of Israel cried for him for 30 days. The same thing that when Moshe Rabbeinu died, then it also says that the Jewish people, they also cried for 30 days, not the entire household, but the entire Jewish people. And yet when it comes to Miriam, who was no doubt a very great person, a person who saved Moshe Rabbeinu, a person who was a prophetess, a person who was the leader, especially for the woman, she had tremendous emunah, the mother of special children, and we find that the Torah is absolutely silent about any reaction from Bnei Israel or from any mention of any hesped that they make. So this is a problem that the Kli Yakar raises. I saw a very interesting explanation in Zebach Mishpacha from Rabbi Hollander, and he says like this, that actually that there was a hesped there, and the greatest hesped that was given was by Hashem himself. The Torah says that Miriam passed away, she died, and then the next part of the pasuk says, "Velo haya maim la'eda." There wasn't water for the congregation. Wow, what a hesped! The hesped was that finally Moshe Rabbeinu, that Hashem says to the Jewish people, "Are you aware now that you went over here, you've been going close to 40 years in the Midbar, and do you realize that you've got a miraculous well that always gave you water, and now suddenly Miriam passes away? You wouldn't even know it. You weren't even aware that it was all due to her." And that was the greatest hesped. The greatest hesped that Miriam had was that immediately after she passed away, there was no water. And suddenly everybody was made to realize that this woman, sustained the entire Jewish community, the whole of Am Yisrael in the desert for 40 years. It was due to her that there was the Ba'era, the miraculous well of Miriam. Until then, this woman who was so tsanua, she was so modest, that no one even knew about how great she really was until she passed away. So that's a very interesting shot of the Zevach Mishpacha. I'd like to be brief a little bit this week. There's other matters that could be said on this whole inyan that the Gemara learns, that we learn that the mitah of tzaddikim is mechaper. When a great person passes away, that brings about a certain amount of atonement. How does that work? We don't really know. Some people say it works because it generates a sense of loss and generates a sort of a time of introspection and of doing tshuva. I say these words because this week and 6 days afterwards, two greats of the last century passed away. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, and also the Kloisenberger Rebbe. They both passed away, very similar personalities, like sort of in their hashkafa. So Yeh Zichram Baruch. Kol Tov to everybody.